Hello, and welcome to the Inspired Living podcast with Ellen Broderick. Each week, we delve into a conversation with an individual who has found their passion and is pursuing it. This week, my guest is Fiji McAlpine. Fiji is a masterful yoga instructor and is one of the founding teachers featured on doyogawithme.com. Fiji guides vinyasa flow infused with power, strength, and precision. She has trained extensively in California, Costa Rica, and Canada. She encourages people to bring themselves fully to their mat and notice all that unfolds as they explore their outer edges. Her students can count on being challenged, but always with support and guidance. She has developed a global following, impacting thousands of students each week. Fiji, welcome, and thank you so much for coming to the podcast this week.
Thank you so much for having me. It's an honor to be here.
I have been a member of the Do Yoga With Me community, which is why even though I live in New Hampshire, I can be a part of a community that comes out of Vancouver, Canada. Mm-hmm. And I love the energy that the teachers and the founder, your husband, David Precision.
He's actually not my husband. So many people think he is. Yeah. Oh. We are the best of friends. And it was originally just him and I on the site, which is why I think so many people think that we're married, and we're not. Probably why we get along so well, actually.
Well, that's great to know. I've always thought you guys were a pair.
Everyone does, yeah.
At any rate, you all hold I think he had set the tone for this website being a place where people could come and do yoga regardless of their ability to pay. And I love that mission. Mm-hmm. And also the fact that the instructors that are on the site, which I don't know, there must be 25 or 30 instructors, are all of the highest caliber. And that is just an amazing joy to know that this level of yoga is available to anybody who has the ability to sign into a computer.
It's pretty remarkable. And honestly, when David first had this idea to start Do Yoga With Me, I think the first time he told me about it was around 2008. And him and I met teaching at a really great yoga studio in Victoria, BC. And actually, a lot of our teachers that everyone loves, we all taught at this place. So there's a connection there. And he said, I've got this idea. I want everyone in the world to be able to do yoga. And he said, there's so many barriers. So if we put it online, that removes a bunch of barriers. And if we make sure that that most of it's always free, then that also will remove the financial barrier. What do you think? And I'm like, this is brilliant. I want to do it. This will make the world a better place. And he's like, okay, so I've got this one camera and we're going to film a class, and it's going to take 5 hours to film a 30-minute class, kind of a thing. And then we're going to edit it, and then we're going to do voiceovers. So it was quite this process, and I can't pay you anything to do it. So most of the teachers who we proposed this idea to were kind of like, no. But I jumped on board because, like you, I think it really is a beautiful idea, and we're living it still. So we really launched out in 2009. And in the beginning, it was David filming me a lot of the time, or setting his cameras up and just filming himself. So for the first few years, most of the classes were the two of us. And then it really started to grow from there. And once it caught traction, then other teachers were like, okay, there's something to this. It's going to work. It's actually going to be a big thing. So now we have this beautiful, diverse community of teachers. And what we've had the ability to do, what David's really had the ability to do, is stand in alignment with his value and his intention for this site. And then to stand also in a place of invitation for others, saying, this is what the site is about. These are our values in this site. If that aligns with you, we'd love to have you, type of a thing. So we have slowly over time grown our teacher base just by standing in that place of invitation. And then every time we come across a teacher who we really click with, it's like, okay, that invitation, would you like to be part of this? And so we've grown quite organically that way, which has really had such a good outcome, because I think what people like you point out is that we have a really great high caliber teacher, but also they're so diverse in what we offer. So we've got really great restorative teachers, and we've got really great hatha teachers, and we've got really great vinyasa teachers. So we do have this really nice overall mix, which has been great. Yeah.
Absolutely. You mentioned intention and aligning with intention. So let's talk about your life and how yoga and your life come together. What starts on the mat and moves into your life, and what the process is like of aligning and realigning and realigning. Would you speak about that a little bit?
Yeah. And I think that what you just said at the end there is really important. It's a process. So I've been really lucky in that great teachers have come into my life and stayed. So I'd say right now I am blessed with two mentors. One of them is Peter Sterios, who really is sort of my yoga mentor. And he's been in my life for about 20 years and has guided my growth a lot of the time in my yoga practice. And then my other mentor is a woman who I actually work with in my teacher trainings, and her name is Mary Prefontaine. And she's taught me about personal growth and intention and alignment. And so kind of like that idea of what's on the mat, off the mat, with the two of them together, I realized that life is the mat and the mat is life, right? So what I'm doing on the mat is I'm learning how to work through resistance in a gentle and kind way. That's what yoga is. It's allowing us to reorient how we meet resistance, because we're conditioned to meet resistance with like the iron fist of mind over matter. And what yoga has taught me is it's mind into matter. You bring your mind into the matter of your body and your being, and you feel, then you have a lot more choices, a lot more navigation when resistance comes up. And resistance, we knock resistance too quickly. We think it's a bad thing. It's actually a learning tool a lot of the time. It's, if there's resistance, we're usually rubbing up against the fact that there's a situation where we're tempted to act or react in a way that is actually out of alignment with our intention or our value or our purpose. And I think we're always tempted to act out of alignment, right? So it's a narrow path that we're trying to stay on. And Mary really taught me about understanding what my core values are, understanding what my overall guiding life purpose is. And then whenever a situation arises where there's resistance, you just ask yourself a few questions of, if I were to say yes to this or move forward with this, is it aligned with my values? If it's no, that's a big like red light. Is it aligned with my overall purpose? And if it's a no, that's like, whoa, I almost went down this road and it's not aligned with my purpose. It's not aligned with my values. What am I doing? And it's often, we get these pressures of society and we get these expectations and we think we want something or we think we should do something. And when we really come back into, well, who am I? And actually, what's the core of my path? Then it's easier to navigate these things and realign. Like you said, it's a realign. Again, it's constantly coming back and asking yourself these questions. So on my mat, it comes up a lot. That's where you encounter the ego and there's resistance here. I can't, sometimes it's mental resistance. I'm afraid of something, a pose. Sometimes it's physical resistance. I don't have the flexibility or the strength to move into a pose. So you're always rubbing up against these moments and getting the chance to pause and be, instead of necessarily having to charge at something or run away from it. So I think that's a lot of alignment for me. Is we think that there's these two responses that we have in these friction-like scenarios, that which life is full of. And that is either fight it or run away from it, right? And the yoga teaches us that there's a third choice. You don't have to fight, you don't have to flight, you can pause. And that's often the best thing, is just to pause, the sacred silence, let things settle, allow your mind to clear, feel, because I think a lot of the time we're trying to numb. And then when you've had that pause, then the choice is usually quite apparent. It's easier to stay in alignment then. But that's been a learning process. It's been 20 years working with Peter. It's been, I feel like Mary coming into my life about 8 years ago has really helped accelerate my understanding of living a life in alignment off of the mat. So her layering on top of what I was learning with Peter really helped me take it from the mat and start to really play big in my life. And that was scary, because it meant there was some unraveling that had to happen to actually fully step back onto my path and be more in alignment. And part of it was in divorce. And it was a big discerning for me, and realigning and actually being honest with who I am and what's important in this very sacred one life that I'm leading right here. And so, yeah, that's kind of how I navigate alignment and intention and purpose. It's a constant, it's a daily practice.
One of the things as you're talking, Fiji, that comes to my mind is the ability when you have been practicing yoga to actually have a conversation with yourself and understand what your own wisdom is and where it is asking, what it is asking of you. I love what you said about when you come up against friction, that often, the choices, we think the choices are limited to either fight it or maybe run, or whatever the case may be. But there's the choice of pausing and being with whatever is without judging it or without judging yourself. So that to me says too that it's with allowing yourself to be in a place of self-love and hovering there for a period of time, which I think is both powerful for the individual and powerful for the world.
Yeah, I would agree that it's very powerful for the individual and the world. And you spoke to something that's important there, is that when we take time to pause and to be in that place and hover for a little while, the other voice comes up. And that's the one that you were alluding to, which is the intuitive voice. So in our heads, we often think that we have the one voice that we hear, for those of us who hear a voice in our head, because I've recently found out some people don't have that. But there's a voice that's strong, but then there's a really quiet voice. And often we need to be still for long enough for the quiet voice to be heard. And it's the one that's usually whispering wisdom. And that's often how wisdom does, the real wisdom comes from within as a whisper. It's rarely a barking marching order. And you have to be quiet and you have to be still and you have to be clear to hear it. And it's there.
It's there. It's there, and it's waiting for you.
Yeah. And it's so funny when you hear it. You might be hearing and acknowledging it, but it's almost always something that you already deeply know. And so the whisper comes through and you're like, it's a knowing. It's like, oh yeah, I know that. And now okay. I've listened. Yes. Yeah.
Would you speak a little bit about your movement into the world in a big way, in a maybe I would say audacious way, because I think I'm sort of picking up on the invitation that you alluded to, that you had of bringing yourself more fully.
Yeah.
Speak about that.
Yeah. So there was in working with Mary. So Mary Prefontaine. She's known quite well in different circles, sort of around the world. She does a lot of big work with people, and she really works with people in being more fully themselves and understanding the barriers that might get in the way. She's a remarkable woman, and everyone who's worked with Mary says to everybody else afterwards, you need a Mary in your life. Just quite this saying we have going. And yeah, so I think really what I was doing before, there was a lot of hiding, and there was a lot of, for me, a lot of lack of confidence that what I actually had to offer was of much value or meaning. It was something that I felt joyful about, and I felt purposeful in what I was doing, but I didn't necessarily feel that it could be very impactful and that it was something that I should take out into the world in a bigger way, because I just didn't know how it would be received. And in working with her, she's really helped me pull away a lot of that self-doubt and understand the value and see and receive the feedback that I get from others like you. And I get the most beautiful feedback from people around the world about how my classes have in some ways changed their life, and things that I've said that I believe in my heart to be true resonate with them and have really helped as a pillar. So I've developed the courage to actually step more fully into the self that always has been, and then take that self and step more forward. And so her and I have been in the last 18 months taking sort of the combining of what I do and what she does, and leading experiences for other people. So we've done 4 rounds of yoga teacher training together, where we infuse this idea of living in alignment with yourself and living fully in yourself. And we bring that into the yoga teacher training. And we also do it in retreats. So I was really lucky to be with her in France in May, leading a retreat. And it's absolutely transformational what happens at the end of it. And to experience that and to see it in the other women who were there, that immediately clicked into me. This is important work. I have value. I am a great teacher. Like it all came together. And I think there's a moment where you come into yourself and go, this is what I was meant to do, and I'm going to do it to the very best of my ability. And it's a wonderful moment to experience, and I really want everyone to have it. And so many people think they don't, oh, well, I don't have a life's purpose. I'm just a this, or I'm just a this. And I say, well, yeah, I used to just say I'm just a yoga teacher, and it would just knock my value right down onto the ground. And now I say, I am a yoga teacher, and I feel phenomenal about it. And so there is a shift, and it shows up in the rest of your life. The last 18 months, so many people in my life have said, you've changed. You're exactly the same, but something has shifted in you. You're glowing, you're present, there's a power that is coming out of you. And it's just in being in myself and celebrating it, instead of trying to change it slightly to be who I think the others wanted, or to push it down.
Well, that's exciting. And also, what it means to be a powerful woman in the world.
Yeah.
And what you come up against, both of people noticing that and celebrating it, and maybe people not being comfortable with it.
Yes. And that comes with it as well. And that's also an alignment process. So when you shift and change, sometimes we outgrow other relationships and situations or jobs or places and different things. And so it's an opportunity for a realignment, especially when you're thinking that you only have a certain amount of time and you only have a certain amount of energy in every day and within a single lifetime. So if that is true, how am I going to spend it? Because it's precious. And I want it to be in alignment. And this year has really been spending my time and my energy with the people who amplify it and don't drain it. And it has shifted so much for me. And it's a seeking of those people. I mean, you must get to meet so many people in doing this work that you feel an alignment or a kinship with. And so it's standing in that place of invitation like David did. And now he's surrounded by people who are like him, right? Which is great. So there is that invitation piece, but then there's also the piece of willingly letting go. And that can be hard for us too, because we feel that there is an obligation for us to be in relationship or doing certain things, and that we can't let those things go. But often there is a way to filter through. Yeah.
And we don't, I was thinking about what Stephen Cope talks about, that we don't always know. He talks about Gandhi, who was going to be leading India in civil disobedience, but he didn't know what the civil disobedience was going to be.
Yeah.
So everybody's waiting for him to lead, and he goes into meditation for a very long period of time until you hear that still small voice, which says, in his case, says, it's salt. We're going to lead this revolution. We're going to upset the British Empire by disobeying the salt laws. So,
Yes.
so it's interesting because we don't always know what it is we are that's going to lead us in the direction, and what it is that's going to keep us aligned or help us to realign.
No, the teachers come in so many different ways. And we also don't know, it's the outcome piece that I think that we get so hung up on. Instead of looking at the alignment of the now, right? So the alignment of the now, instead of thinking, well, is this choice going to get me what I want 10 steps ahead of now, right? So you'll get there if you think about being here. It's that we never get to the place we want to go because we're not thinking about this step. We're thinking about the 10th step. And for me, that's been like the coming back to the now and the asking those reaffirming questions has been such a great way of waiting for the wisdom to show up. And the thing that's really crazy that a lot of people who've made this shift, we kind of say the same thing, is that in the past, the things that I was holding, the structures, the constructs I had in my mind that I was trying to attain and that I was trying to live into, that I felt like I was kind of failing, they were all actually ceilings and boxes compared to the life that I feel like I'm leading now. This is a life I never would have imagined or been setting, my course towards, actually, this life in so many ways, in my relationships, in my where I'm living, in my the career that I have, any of it. I would not have intentionally said that's the outcome that you're trying to get to. And it's 10,000 times more beautiful than the path that I was trying to get to. And so it's this idea of you have to let go of the plan of the outcome sometimes and just be in the alignment of the moment to let the most beautiful outcome come to you. And because we can't even, I think we limit ourselves in what we think we're worthy of in love, in life, in interactions with other people, in our, what we call work. I think that we really limit ourselves to structures that already exist, because we're afraid to open up our imagination to imagine something that has never been created yet, which is really the beauty of not knowing what tomorrow is that there is an outcome that has never existed before. And to let our mind expand out that way is really exciting. Yeah.
Really exciting. How does that relate to the mat?
So that it relates a lot to the mat. And this is the same thing that we'll come across and I talk about in my classes as well, as this idea of the millimeter miracle. So that's my favorite tagline, and I've used it for years. And it really is this idea again of like this step, this millimeter. Don't think about the handstand. That's 10 years down the road. But this step that you're doing right now will eventually lead to something. But we're only making progress 1 millimeter at a time. So just focus on this moment instead of this, the big outcome. And I often say to my students, the pose is not the point, right? Once you get to the pose and you do the pose completely, traditionally, once you've done a pose perfectly alignment wise, you're supposed to stop doing it because all the learning was getting there. It wasn't the pose. Right? So that's the whole process of be here now. Take this step. Celebrate this millimeter of growth and space and expansion and sensation. That's what yoga is about. It's about bringing you into the moment via sensation. We're using the body, the growth structure of the body, to cultivate sensation and an inner sense of alignment that brings us back into the present moment. And I really believe that yoga has exploded in the West because simultaneously what's happened is that our brain, as yoga has become more popular, our brain at the same time is being pulled out of our body and out of the present moment with the expansion of technology. And technology is phenomenal. I mean, I'm an online yoga teacher. I love what it has the capacity to offer, but I also see how it's pulling us out of our body in a lot of ways. And so yoga brings you back into the body and we're hungry for it. We're hungry to be in our body and in the moment. So we need the balance. As technology goes like this, we also inadvertently need to be coming in more often and having these tangible experiences to create that balance.
Absolutely. That's so true. What brought you to yoga initially?
An injury, like so many people. And it's so funny. I'm a classic person. I hurt my back and I tried everything, tried physio, tried IMS, all the different things. Nothing was working. And then my physio was a bit stumped and said, well, you should just try going to yoga. I've been going to yoga and it makes my back feel better. So I went to yoga and it made my back feel better a little bit for while I was doing the practice and for a few minutes after. So then it became this kind of thing of like, oh, I'm going to go again to get more pain relief. And then I don't know when it happened, but all of a sudden one day I was like, oh, I'm going to yoga, but my back doesn't hurt. When did that happen? Kind of thing. Like I didn't even notice because it's gradual. It's a millimeter process, healing. And by that point in time, I was hooked on yoga itself. So then it had become more powerful. Like I just wanted to go. Yeah. But the great thing about yoga is people come, one of Arlene, who is also a great teacher I had years ago. She used to say, when you teach a class, you're going to have 12 people in front of you. One person came because their back hurts. One person came because their doctor told them to. One person wants a tighter bum or to look good in their Lululemon pants. One person's there because they just wanted an occasion to wear their Lululemon pants. Somebody else got dragged there by their boyfriend. Somebody else came because it fit into their schedule. Someone else came because their work is paying for it. She's like, you've got this variety of reasons that people come to yoga. And all of those are valid reasons. They're going to get what they came for, but they're going to get so much more. And that's why you teach a class, because of the more that people get from yoga. And so whenever I teach a class, I'm always looking out at the room and thinking, regardless of why you rolled your mat out today, you're going to get that and you're going to get something even more valuable.
I remember at some point in time doing a yoga class with a woman that I worked with for numerous years, probably about 8 years. And I realized one day as I was doing some like ocean sounding breath with my postures as I was moving from posture to posture. And I realized, I just realized that there was, it almost felt like a chiropractic adjustment, that everything lined up. And I remember thinking, wow, I didn't even know that was possible.
Yes. Those moments are pure bliss. And I think it is when there is an alignment taking place. And part of it can be maybe, chiropractic, but a lot of it is there's an energetic alignment. It's like when you have a constellation and all of the dots connect all of a sudden and the whole thing lights up. And so some people say that those moments are like a chakra alignment or a chakra shuddhi. So you would have energy that pierced all of the chakras, and you have the crown chakra is illuminated, it's because every other chakra has been lit up, right? And you have that moment of being present and samadhi, where you're feeling connected to yourself, but also like there's like a piercing connection to everything. Everything is aligned. And yoga really helps us do that. When I teach a class, I actually teach a class. So now that you're going to go back and you're going to notice this, is I typically will teach a class intentionally trying to move prana, which is energy, through the chakra system systematically in the correct order. So you start close to the ground, root chakra, getting into your body, being anchored, being still for a moment, either in child's pose or seated, something where you're able to be close to that earth element, the kapha element. Then you start to do some sort of undulating, gentle movements that ease into warming the body up. But really what it's doing is it's trying to link your brain into the feeling centers of your body. Because when we first step on our mat, our brain is often not actually there yet, right? Especially if you're at a studio and you like race to get there. So it gives you that moment to move into the second chakra, where you're opening up the feeling centers, the feeling modalities of your body. So cat cow, anything where you're getting into a sticky sensation, you're like, oh yeah, because those sensations will bring you into the moment and you need to feel to be able to do yoga safely. Because if you're not feeling, then it's not a good thing. And then we move up a little bit more and you start heating the body, right? In the practice, that's the third chakra. You start doing poses that require willpower to hold them and to sustain them, like chair pose. And then you're moving into that more fluid part of the practice where poses start to link together, vinyasa, and you evoke the air element, which is the element of the heart chakra. We start to shift into some back bends as well at that third quarter part of the practice. As you start to move back down, you're often doing things that are associated with the neck as well. And those bigger back bends where you might open the throat. And then we move back down towards the ground. The integration, the whispers of wisdom usually come up in that quieter end part of the practice when we're opening the third eye and we're really listening to that intuitive sense. And then hopefully at the end in Shavasana, you have that little moment where you feel the alignment, because everything connected and lit up. So those are the practices. When it's done well, at the end, you just leave with this amazing feeling of like, I just reset the whole system. All chakras are firing, spinning as they should be, back to the original operating system. And then you step off your mat out into the world and someone cuts you off and your third chakra is thrown right back into misalignment. So it can be short-lived, but it's there.
Yeah, it's there, and we move on and we look at, oh, yeah, that really pissed me off, and where am I with this? And
Yeah,
trying to be present and pause, and the whole thing is then it continues. It's a continuous process.
Yeah, got to get back to the mat.
Now you're leading a variety of retreats and workshops. Do you want to say a word about that before we?
Sure. Yeah, so I kind of have a dual modality. If you go on to Yoga with me, we have a retreat section. And under there, you'll see all of the upcoming retreats. Of course, since COVID, the demand for retreats really has amplified. So we're we are adding to our retreat repertoire. There's going to be more retreats than we've ever had over the next few years because we've got lots of full retreats with wait lists. So we're trying to make space for everyone, which is great. And then I also, with Mary Prefontaine, I have a second business called Mind into Matter Yoga. And her and I do those special retreats where we're working on that individual expansion. So there is the yoga component, it's half yoga, and that's half of what she does. And so it really is that very interesting. So if you're looking at that deep dive into self, we do those, and those will be posted on the Mind into Matter, which you can find if you're looking me up as well. And next spring in May, I will be leading 2 of those in France. So that will be an opportunity to take that deep dive, and then lots of just fun retreats in places like Mexico with Do Yoga with me. And I'm at Hollyhock in a couple of weeks, and just got back from Spain, and just lots of really great. So those are the 2 places to find retreats if you want to practice in person.
Awesome. And I also want to just say that one of the things that is on Do Yoga with me that I have found really, really helpful over the years is I try to have a practice that I do yoga maybe between 4 and 6 times a week. And there are occasions where life is happening and I get off track. And then there are challenges that are on Do Yoga with me, and you lead some of those challenges. As a matter of fact, one of them had to do with the chakras, and I think you had every element or every chakra in every class, but with a focus on each of the chakras, and you speak about them in that. But that is a really wonderful resource because it allows you to say, all right, I'm going to make a commitment to, it could be the next 7 days or the next 4 days or the next 30 days. And once you've made that commitment, it's easier to just, oh, this is what I'm doing now.
And the class is selected for you, which is so beautiful. And I have 2 14-day challenges that are on there. One is called 14-day yoga challenge, and the other one is called Elevate 14-day yoga challenge. Yeah. And then there's the 7-day chakra healing challenge that's on there. So when I designed those 3 challenges, the neat thing about them too is that I designed them with the challenge in mind. So it's not just 14 random classes that are put together. The 14-day practice is sequentially built up over time and is interrelated, like you said. So that's a really great thing. It's like, okay, day 1, I know what I'm doing. Day 2, I'm building on day 1, and it will cycle back. So those are a really great way for people to find a committed practice, but also a good starting point for people too, because those are really great resources.
And they allow you to, especially with the sequential part, it allows you to continuously see, oh, that's where my edge is today.
Yeah.
And sometimes it's a little further along. Sometimes it's a little backed up, depending on what else in life has happened. So, well, listen, it has been such a pleasure to talk to you. And I want to say thank you to you for all of the classes that I've taken with you, and to finally get to actually meet and talk to you is really a treat.
Oh, it was absolutely my pleasure. I've completely enjoyed every moment. And thank you so much for doing this and sharing this nugget with everybody else who's listening, so they'll be able to pop on the site and just see what it's all about.
Absolutely. Well, thank you. And for Do Yoga with me, this is Ellen Broderick, and my guest today has been Fiji McAlpine. See you next week.